You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA. You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA.
Hello and welcome to episode 368 of the fabulous Peltoncast, sponsored by our friends at Pagliacci Pizza. I'm your co-host Kevin Pelton,
And I'm Tristan Carcino.
and we are coming to you back from Renton, Washington, home of the Super Bowl
Jackson
48.
Smith and Jigba. Oh, sorry, the Super Bowl 48 champion Seattle Seahawks.
Wow,
The whole team.
We're just turning the pod over to Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I think, you know what? We could just Seattle Sports Figure of the Year 2023, June 12th. It's done. The race is over.
I'm gonna save it to award it to him in like 2026.
You're going to give it to the whole rookie class? I gave you an idea already.
It isn't. But what if last year was Julio Rodriguez's best year?
I
It
mean,
won't be. But maybe it wasn't the best idea to
everything in
say that.
baseball is certain, guy.
That does sound like me. Hashtag at CanPredictBaseball on Twitter. Well, let's get into it because we've got a lot of toast to get to.
All right.
Shocking amount of it. It's almost an all toast podcast.
Oh, I love
this
those.
week.
They're
Very limited
honestly-
rundown.
When we do all rundown podcasts, not actually my favorite, but all toasts, those are my favorite podcasts.
Oops, all toasts.
Here we go.
We
We can toast anything too. That's the thing about toasts.
Wow, challenge.
And also
accepted.
anything could be rundown.
I suppose that's
You
also
can
true.
expositorily talk about any information while I sit here and go, oh, ooh, wow.
Well, I'm going to sit here and expositorily talk about this week's beer,
Hello.
which is not technically part of our search for Seattle's best IPA.
Oh,
but still figured
no.
we should do it anyway. From our friends at Future Primitive Brewing in White Center, Washington. It's the Queer Beer IPA, brewed in collaboration with and supporting our friends at White Center Pride. This IPA is packed full of Citrocryo, Cashmere, and Galaxy hops. Fantastic light body that supports the hops, is clean and summery, clocking in at 6% ABV. This is a perfect beer for the warm summer Pride celebration.
All right.
And it is very much a summer night in Seattle tonight after a weekend that was not so summery, I would have to say. You're also this week going to try the Tropical Staycation IPA from Rooftop Brewing that I had a couple weeks ago when we were recording remotely, but had not yet gotten one of those to you. Well, we start with the big one. Congrats to Sue Bird on having her number 10. Congrats to third Pelton brother.
There we
Sue
go.
Bird,
There we
on
go.
having her number 10 jersey retired and raised the Climate Pledge Arena rafters during a 3-hour
That
ceremony
was-
on Sunday.
There are a lot of things that are not 3 hours. I went to Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse or whatever, and that I was like, whoa, that movie's 2.5 hours? This is kind of a kid's movie. That's long. And then all of a sudden I see that the Sue Bird retirement ceremony, I saw that you were tweeting about it, and I was like, this game has to be over. The ceremony started 14 hours ago.
I just kept tweeting. So
It was so long that we passed daylight savings time, so there was an extra hour on top.
Well, Talking Taco Time co-host Randy Cote.
I mean, he was the fourth
He
co-host.
was,
He's
yes,
the
chronologically.
not fourth quality wise.
No.
He is first Talking Taco Time co-host.
1A. I think it's him and Chris.
Okay,
we're
okay.
pretty distant third and fourth in this pecking order.
And
He was
all pecking orders.
He was also well. No, there's only two of us on this podcast. We by definition
Somehow behind Keith.
exactly. In our continuing effort to use the by default two sweetest words in the English language joke every week on this podcast. Again, we are top two by default. He was in the building and texting me throughout the ceremony.
Randy was.
Yes.
Okay.
And-
Like, I have to go to the bathroom. How much longer is there? I'm
did have
really
to-
hungry.
I did have to
I
take a
have
deep
children
break.
at home. Like, I don't. What was he texting you during this?
About at one point,
Tristan was hired and fired by the storm in the process of the ceremony.
At one point, he proffered an over/under on when the jersey would actually be raised, which wasn't that far off. But I said which day,
There you go.
which I felt pretty good
Let's
about.
remember some jokes.
Always a favorite segment on this podcast. So, yeah, This ceremony was scheduled to go 45 minutes to an hour.
Are you joking?
I am not joking.
People just kept talking?
The speeches for the speakers who were not Sue Bird, who were talking about her, were supposed to, I think, be like 3 to 5 minutes.
Was this Logan Roy's funeral? People were just going up there?
No. I mean, it was a scheduled
Cousin
trip.
Greg couldn't stop Macklemore from giving a speech?
So Macklemore was the co-host,
Okay.
along with Megan Rapinoe. Did not get a chance to ask about the banner.
What?
Sadly.
Macklemore wasn't available for the media after?
He was not.
He was like, I
made
need to
it.
get the fuck out of
He
this
did not have an
place.
availability. Nor did Megan Rapinoe for us to ask about her calf injury, but more on that later in the pod.
Oh, wow.
And they averaged probably about 15 to 20 minutes each.
How
I
many
would say.
speakers were there?
So Storm co-owners Jenny Gilder and Lisa Brummel spoke. I think Swin Cash was next after them. Sue's agent Lindsay Kagawa-Colas spoke.
Oh, people love to hear from agents.
You say that from experience. Former
Can't believe we're agents.
Storm coach Jenny Busek.
Uh-huh.
Lauren Jackson. Rapinoe did the intro of Sue Bird, and then Bird took the microphone.
That many speeches took 3 hours?
Well, they took an hour and 20 minutes.
And then
Sue took an hour and a half all by herself.
Sue talked for an hour and a half?
It was basically like a one-woman show.
Oh my, she's Bill Simmons on the Lost podcast? Not Lost, sorry. On the Castaway podcast?
Because she had an audience. It's like performing a one-person show.
That was not a tight 5.
I mean, she did have 21 years to pack into there, and she went back to basically her entire basketball career, her entire athletics career.
Monologue style.
Monologue style.
How much water did she drink in between?
Not that much, I don't think.
Her mouth must have been so dry for talking for an hour and a half.
It was a very long time to talk. Speaking from
Everybody
experience
else,
of
I
having
feel like
spoken-
everybody else's approach to this is like, what a wonderful ceremony. It's a celebration of Sue Bird's career. And I'm just like, I feel like I would have been there being like, oh my God. She's still going. It would have been at like minute 15 that it would have been like, she's only in her rookie year right now.
She said she had 7 pages before she started, and she kept giving an update on which page she was on.
7 pages does not. I did those note cards for the Jared Kellenick hot takes at the Peltoncast Live. I was like, this might take 5 minutes, and it took 2.5. Wow. No, I'm not even mad. I'm just impressed. That any human being could give a monologue for that long about themselves.
No, it wasn't really about herself. It was thanking everybody who had contributed to George Ernie.
That
And
was
she
the
also,
first Peltoncast that we recorded. Let me take you back to Kevin's kitchen table in Boulevard Park.
Oh, wow, when we get to episode, or we're coming up on the 10-year
I'll be
anniversary
like, Kevin,
of the Peltoncast.
let me take this entire podcast myself 2 hours.
I'm actually going to produce.
And then Steve Sarkisian took the USC head coaching job.
What a big day, our first emergency pod.
That was the first of many emergency pods.
And then we recorded one about the Seahawks beating the Saints on Monday Night Football later that night.
was-
But we can reminisce about that at the 10-year anniversary of the Peltoncast coming up later this year.
Wow.
10 years.
I know.
But one of the most important parts of Sue's speech was she basically laid out the case for herself as Seattle's most Seattle person. She made fun of people using umbrellas. She
did
was
this come up?
pronouncing local place names. Just
You
talking about
were
how
tweeting about that, and I was like, when did Sue Bird talk about people with umbrellas? It was a wide-ranging...
it was, but she was talking about how originally when she was drafted, Seattle was like, or when the Storm won the lottery and she figured she was going to go to Seattle as the number 1 pick, that she was like, where is Seattle? That's so far away. And that now Seattle is home. And she considers herself a Seattleite and therefore does not use umbrellas.
Okay.
So it was impressive in terms of, again, just like her Seattle bona fides.
Okay, what were other Seattle bona fides?
Okay,
What else? What is the rest of her case for Seattle's? I remember she had some pretty good burger takes. She knew what was up with Seattle burgers.
She did, yes, when she came on the pod during our burger search or right before it. I forget what else was in the list of Seattle criteria, but there was some other reference that was unrelated to that. It was like, oh, that's a very Seattle thing.
You said she pronounced Puyallup correctly.
Yes.
Did she work squim in there?
She did not use squim. which was a
Montezano.
bit of an upset.
Bit of an upset.
I know Sammamish was in there. as well.
Sammamish?
Yeah, that one's not as hard to pronounce.
Still.
Oh, there was also like, okay, so here's some good ones. She told a story about how when she first got here, she thought that the Ballard Fred Meyer was like the only grocery store. So anytime she had to get groceries, she would go to
In
the
the
Ballard
entire
Fred Meyer.
city.
And then someone pointed out to her that there was at the time, a Larry's Market, now the Met Market, on Mercer Street, right down the street from the storm practice.
That was a
from the
Larry's
Furtado
Market?
Center. Yeah, that was what it originally was. Yeah.
The Met Market on Mercer?
Yeah.
Whoa. That's
I
even
had
before
forgotten
my
that one.
time.
Yeah. She talked about her evolution of her favorite restaurants. I forget what all was in there. Wasabi was in there. That was back in the day. How
Taco
to Cook
Time
a Wolf.
did not make an
Did
appearance.
not
No.
make an appearance.
Cool.
And the evolution of her favorite bar from karaoke at Ozzy's every night.
Oh, boy.
Look, we all had our Ozzy's phase in our 20s, much like so. Wild Rose was in there, and then ended up at I think it was 90s Night at Havana was the ultimate incarnation there.
Okay. So Wild Rose.
Kangaroo and Kiwi was also in there, obviously. The Lauren Jackson connection. So there were a couple of other like geographical ones that were just like, Sue knows what's up here. Only us other true Seattleites are getting these references.
Tell me about this goat shirt you have as well. For
This
Sue
is
Bird.
actually from last season.
Oh, okay. That's an aged goat shirt for Sue Bird.
Correct.
Okay, so if she is Seattle's most Seattle person, she's now been retired by the Storm. They've used their 3-hour ceremony. You said this was the longest ceremony in the history of time.
Again, I can't go to ESPN Stats and Info Group and be like, hey, what's the longest retirement ceremony? There's not a database of that. But one of the things I looked
Of
for
any person in any profession.
Right. One of the things I looked for is like, so the longer ones typically occur when they do it is just its own night. So I remembered, for example, that the Celtics had done this with Larry Bird. Magic Johnson famously flew in to surprise him at this. I looked that one up. It was about an hour and a half. Michael Jordan, they did a ceremony in 1994 during his first retirement to retire the number 23 before he came back wearing the 4-5. 2 hours, according to the contemporary media reports. And then, like, all the other people you could think of, I looked mostly at NBA. All the other ones were, like, in conjunction with games. They were, like, 50 minutes at the longest. Like, Kobe's was just retired at halftime, or his 2 jerseys.
His 2 jerseys.
Because they retired 8 and 24 for the late Kobe Bryant.
Wow.
I looked up Derek Jeter. His was about an hour. Sylvia Fowles of the Minnesota Lynx had her jersey retired same day, also on Sunday.
Same day as Sue.
Yeah,
Okay.
50 minutes.
Yeah.
After, as a post-game celebration. It would have been funny. That game started much later. So the Sue ceremony did end before the Sylvia Fowles ceremony. But if it had like entirely encompassed the Sylvia Fowles one, that would have been pretty amusing. But like I said, I mean, I wish we would have known and had maybe taken an intermission so people could go to the bathroom and get snacks.
Yes.
But I mean, Sue's speech was terrific. Of course it was. She's so good at public speaking. So
I'm impressed. So Sue now is the GOAT of retirement ceremonies.
yes.
Undisputed.
I don't want to say undisputed. Someone may find a longer one out there, but I haven't found it yet.
We've recorded some long Peltoncasts. I don't think we've ever even been to 3 hours, and there are two of us talking.
God, no.
The longest monologue I ever gave was last week's Mariners Hot Takes, and that was like a minute and a half.
I think you've had longer monologues than that.
Having conceptual thoughts about the Seahawks. But, okay, one last time. Sue Bird now has had her number retired in Seattle. She's a Seattleite. Where does she rank at this moment? Obviously, this is it's an evolving list. Seattle sports history. Where is Sue Bird?
I mean, I had her at the top the last time we did this conversation, so she hasn't dropped down. She hasn't, like, it's not like Russell Wilson passed her in the last 6 months.
Honestly, he did some pretty good work for the city of Seattle.
Fair. Good point.
We could thank him for Devin Witherspoon. And probably Jackson Smith
did.
because they were not going to draft him if it was the only first-round pick.
We'll have a toast to this later, but he did bring, he was in the building to bring Denver a championship.
Oh, Russell Wilson was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, for Sue? That's wild.
Oh, no, he was not. Who was in the building?
He was maybe a part owner of the Storm for a period of time.
No.
Oh, okay.
Sounders.
Only the Sounders?
Yes. And in the Seattle, like the Sonics Arena group, he's still part of that.
So she's number one, head of Griffey.
I think so. I mean, the 4 championships. That's hard to beat.
Okay. Who's number 2? And are Sean Kemp and Gary Payton one single person?
Ideally, if you're doing a Mount Rushmore, you put the 2 of their heads onto one head so that you can fit 5 people on there on your Mount Rushmore.
What about Don James?
I think it's tougher for a coach to be that high. I think I have Russ number 2, just because championship again.
Okay. So, Sue Bird, greatest athlete in the city of Seattle.
Yeah.
Longest retirement ceremony in Seattle history. Again, all professions.
I mean, if there was like someone who spoke for an hour and a half when they were retiring from like the water department, that would be really impressive. I have a vague memory of our grandfather having a retirement party when he retired from the water department.
That's what you were thinking, the water department?
Yeah, that's why it was in my head.
The whole party probably wasn't even 3 hours long.
I doubt he spoke for an hour and a half.
Grandpa. I doubt he spoke for a minute and a half. Oh my God. Sue Bird clearly hasn't been in the war.
Oh no, not the greatest generation.
Something about you speaking for an hour and a half about yourself tells me you haven't seen some things.
Not about herself. It was primarily to thank a lot of people, and she had many nice shout outs to many members of the organization, many of whom were there. So,
well, and you always have that good joke you made to Randy.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I'll give an hour and a half speech about that joke when I retire. When we retire from the Peltoncast.
I was thinking about retiring from the Peltoncast this week.
Oh no. Well, it's good news. Your youngest son is ready to take over. He was fake recording a podcast earlier and said he was filling in for you with me.
I love that.
But we also learned earlier this evening that he does not know who Sue Bird is. Although then he did put it together and was able to conclude at the end that she was a WNBA player.
He's really good at context clues.
Yeah, quite good.
Okay,
almost as good as flipping people off.
That's what he's best at. He could give a 3-hour ceremony on how to do it.
And would. Our next toast, I alluded to this. Congrats to the 2 former Sonics who were part of the Nuggets championship. Obviously, Jeff Green.
Oh, wow.
2007
is he the
Sonics.
Longest tenured?
You're aware of who else was on that team, right?
Who else is on the team?
In 2007-08?
Kevin Durant.
Yes. He's still going, as it turns out.
Okay.
But pretty amazing
Who are
that the 2 of them.
tenured NBA players at this point?
So Udonis Haslem is just retired.
Did he retire?
He has officially retired. Tonight was his last game.
Okay, he was on the roster.
Oh, yeah.
He's basically a coach, though.
Oh, but he occasionally cameos in games. Is there any? Well, LeBron. LeBron.
LeBron. I was going to say there's some really big player.
Yeah, there's an obvious one.
You know he saw the length of that ceremony and was like, motherfucker, I'm coming. LeBron is not going to not be the GOAT of everything.
That's a good and fair take.
We will wait and see. Sue Bird has the GOAT title of retirement ceremonies for now.
Challenge accepted.
The Derek Jeter one being really short, I think, is really funny.
Yeah, that was the one I really thought. I mean, Tom Brady hasn't had his jersey retired. I feel like that one could be pretty long.
A lot of people need to speak.
Exactly.
I don't think Brady's talking for an hour and a half about himself.
I agree. Again, not about herself. About her journey, everyone who was involved along the way. So many shout outs. Okay, so Jeff Green, one of the last 2 remaining players from the 07-08 Sonics team.
Okay.
Which now boasts at least one NBA head coach because Adrian Griffin was recently hired as head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, who was part of that team with them.
And he was on that team, Adrian Griffin?
I'd have to go check whether there's any other coaches from that team. Incredible basketball journey for Jeff Green.
How old are we right now?
Oh, I'm well aware how old we are.
God.
Incredible basketball journey for Jeff Green. Had the season he had to miss due to heart surgery.
Had he won a championship before this?
No.
Really?
He was on the Cavs and made the finals in 2018, but that was the year they were swept. So this was a first for him.
Okay, who was the second member of the...
Kelvin Booth.
Oh, and
The lead
Is
executive.
he our GM, lead executive?
Yeah. You know who else was part of building this Nuggets roster on a very technical level?
Who is that?
Sue Bird.
Oh, on a very technical level?
Well, she spent a year as an intern there
Yeah.
in the front office. I don't think she did.
Jokic?
I don't think she. Yeah.
Taught him everything he knows. He didn't know how to pass before Sue.
But Kelvin Booth, I think he's president at this point. I don't know if he got promoted from GM, but he's the lead decision maker for the Nuggets at this point and was the one who made the trade to add Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as the last piece to their starting lineup, signed Bruce Brown Jr., who was invaluable for them off the bench, drafted Christian Brown, who played key role in the finals as a rookie. So really impressive stuff from Kelvin Booth.
Did he make the Aaron Gordon trade?
Earl Watson has also been a head coach from that team, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah. I mean,
No.
years ago.
I mean, he
also,
was
right?
Yes, he was part of that front office, but Tim Connolly was the lead decision maker at that point before leaving to go to Minnesota.
I was thinking of this Nuggets championship, and there's so many different people who played a part in the Nuggets championship or whatever, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm not even. I'm not
Oh, I thought this
leading.
is going to be a 3-hour speech.
No,
joke.
no, I'm not. I'm not leading to a joke or anything here.
Oh, okay.
But I was just thinking about it and how one really, 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 really good player can make everything else look really good around them.
Yeah.
And as much as I don't hate Jokic or whatever, I will be a lifelong Nuggets hater because of past history and then also even more recent Blazers history. Probably. It's not like a strong feeling. It's just like a mild distaste. But seeing everything that Jokic does is just like, in this moment or whatever, I feel like he's the next level of basketball. Like what Jokic does as a player to make everybody else around him better. But then also when he needs to score in the ways that he's scoring, it's just like, even I, as a Jokic hater, not again, mild Jokic hater for a long time, had to be like, all right, fine. He kind of got one here. I think they were beating anybody too. That's the other thing. It's like, I think the Lakers might have beaten the Heat, and I think the Lakers might have beaten the Celtics. And the way that they just like demolished the Lakers, and really ultimately the Heat as well, was this Nuggets team was going to beat anybody in this playoffs. There was no doubt about it. They were the number one seed in the West.
Yes.
They were the best team, beginning to end.
I mean, they weren't the most convincing number one seed, but partially because they recognized that they were going to have this long playoff run, and they rested Jokic a lot in the last month of the season to set it up, which maybe cost him an MVP, but Finals MVP is a lot more important. And more important than anything is that he's going to be able to go home after this. I don't know if you caught like his post-game interviews.
No, what did he say?
He just said, it's good. Now we can go home. We got the job done. Now we can go home.
That's awesome.
Ready to go back to Serbia. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hate that you made me kind of like this team. It's fine. The beating the Heat was like, it's okay.
You did lose your bet on the Heat, though.
I
to
did.
win
That's
the title.
fine. You don't bet on long shots expecting to win.
Exactly.
Don't tell Jan.
Oh, no. You're never going to survive losing that $60. Next up, congrats to UW men's track and field on finishing 9th at the NCAA Outdoor Championships, their first top 10 finish since 1979. Nathan Green finished first in the 1,500 meters, just ahead of teammate and defending champion Joe Wascom, the first time the same school has produced the top two finishers in that event since Oregon in 2010.
That slow school?
Well, they used to be fast, and then they lost their coach to UW, and now UW is fast.
That is wild that coaches matter. Is it recruiting?
I assume there's got to be some technical aspect of it.
Teaching people how to run faster?
Yeah, I mean, there's there's everything's technically to shave a little bit off your time. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, most importantly, wait, they finished 9th. Oregon wasn't one of the 8 schools ahead of them, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's all that I care about. It's just a straight up Northwest Championship in UW men's track.
Let me double check.
And let me just say, Wazoo is not a concern there.
Nor in all likelihood is Oregon State, despite their proximity to Oregon and that running history. Certainly, let's see if we have a top.
Okay,
10.
you have to confirm this because, as far as I'm concerned, right now, this is the fastest school in the Northwest.
Okay, it's not as easy to find as you would like it to be. The list here. Okay, final results. Florida was the winner.
Okay,
for
that's
outdoor
fine. Fine with them. Don't care.
Track and field.
Literally only one school we're looking for.
Where are the overall standings here? Oh, okay. So Oregon did finish fourth in the women's, but did not finish in the top 10 in the men's. Stanford and Arizona State were ahead of UW among Pac-12 schools after UW won the Pac-12 championship. But
I don't like Stanford being faster
decidedly
than UW.
not in the Pacific Northwest, I will say.
Okay, fastest school in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
It displeases me for Stanford to be faster than UW, but I'll accept it as long as we are faster than Oregon.
Oregon. Yeah. All right, next up, congrats to Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan, both named to U.S. men's national team's roster for the Gold Cup, which begins June 24th. This does mean they'll be away from the Sounders for an extended period during this stretch, but still excited for Jordan and Christian. Next up, congrats to Lou Barnes, who became the first NUSL player to reach 200 career caps with Saturday's game. And continues is the NWSL's all-time leader. Switching sports, congrats to UW alum Nick Taylor, who became the first Canadian ever to win the RBC Canadian Open, winning on the fourth playoff hole with a 72-foot eagle for his third career PGA win.
Really?
This was a pretty wild video to watch.
We are a golf school.
Oh, there you go.
That's right. We're fast and we play golf. Watch out, Stanford.
I don't know Stanford's golf program.
I was watching their baseball
Tiger
team
Woods
yesterday.
went there, so
Yes.
I assume it was
Probably
good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I was watching their baseball team yesterday, and they kind of crushed Texas in the end.
Oregon lost in the Super Regionals.
Oh,
Did you
they
see
had
that?
that huge comeback against Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
And then Oral Roberts came back.
Earl
and-
Roberts just taking down all the Pac-12 schools.
Yeah, Oral Roberts. I was like, well, at least they beat Oregon too.
They're the Northwest champions in baseball. Oral Roberts.
Where's Oral Roberts? Did we establish this?
It's in Oklahoma.
Okay.
I believe we determined Tulsa, but I would have to double check that.
I'm going to wager to guess the person Oral Roberts had some pretty antiquated perspectives about all things.
I just don't even want to look it up and find out.
You don't want to look at the... I don't know if Oral Roberts is like relevant or famous enough to have a controversy section, but I'm just going to say there's some questionable perspectives that the person Oral Roberts had.
There is no controversy section. Oh, but it does say Robert's fundraising was controversial.
You could just like set it in stone.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh, it's a person who started a college in Oklahoma.
Yeah. I just don't even want to go down that particular rabbit hole.
You just found that. So did you Control F for controversy?
No.
You just found it.
I just was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. All right.
That's all we need to talk about the person Oral Roberts.
Last in our toasts, a congratulations to the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who have taken a 2-0 lead in the Calder Cup Finals. Hershey ain't got nothing on Coachella Valley and
There we
those
go.
Kraken affiliated players.
This is what we're talking about. This is what we're paying attention to. Look, there might have been a 3-hour Sue Bird retirement ceremony that happened on Sunday, but most importantly was the Coachella Valley Firebirds and their 2-0 lead in the Caldera Cup Finals.
No, just Calder.
Caldera?
No, there's no A in there.
Oh, it's not a caldera.
No.
Like the volcano.
no.
No, okay. In the Calder Cup Finals. I know you look forward to this every single year. I've finally been engaged with it, though.
Almost
They
as
had to
much
score-
as the RBC Canadian Open
Yeah, I was...
and the Outdoor Track and Field Championships. I'm learning all about all sorts of new things this week.
I was watching live on the 72-foot Eagle, and I was like, I damn near fell out of my chair.
I think many people were actually watching
Were they?
that live. It's
I'm-
on CBS.
It's a very popular event.
Yeah. It's part of the PGA Tour.
To me, the PGA Tour is on the same equilibrium as UW men's track and the NCAA Outdoor Championships. I'm like, who could be? Is this on ESPN Plus, Root Sports Plus, Outdoor Channel?
Jim Nance was announcing it.
That's Nick fucking Taylor to you. Thank you. They had the score of the Coachella Valley Firebirds game on the bottom, like
Sports.
often during the Mariners games, and it was like, who is out there? I understand that they have the Kraken TV rights,
The corporate synergy of it all.
like, no, that's definitely what it was. We all knew what was going on. Look, I could smell corporate synergy from a mile away, right? I also really today there was some news about another sports company had some skepticism about when tech companies or Silicon Valley type companies intersect with the world of sport and try to change a thing, and then all of a sudden become exactly that thing.
I don't think that particular criticism is fair, but we are not going to get into that on this podcast. I would say,
But I had some cynicism about it, about the whole thing. But when I saw that corporate synergy between the Mariners and their TV partner, the Kraken, and the Coachella Valley Firebirds, when they had that at the score at the bottom, like often or whatever, I was like, let's freaking go, Firebirds.
all right, lastly, in this section, we have to issue a correction for last week's pod. We said last week that the Mariners' Italian contingent had been reduced to 0 with Sam Onofrio Haggerty getting sent down. That was not actually true at the time because they had missed that Matt Festa had rejoined the bullpen the first weekend of June. But sadly, it did then go to 0 last Friday when Festa was sent down to make room for Penn Murphy's return from the injured list. So we were just ahead of time on that particular pour some out.
Did they call somebody up? So Penn Murphy subsequently got injured.
They called someone else up. We'll
Was
talk
it
about
Ty
that.
Adcock?
Yes.
Who they called up? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Haggerty, in his first 2 games at Tacoma, stole 3 bases.
Oh, yes, he did.
Just torturing those minor league catchers down there. So, all right. We also have a little quick Seattle food update. I don't know. Read the Portland.
You forgot
part of
about something on here as well.
this. What's that?
We have to talk Vegas food at least for a second.
Oh, you're right. We do have to talk Vegas food. I completely forgot about that. But first, we have to update people that Taco Time Northwest posted on social media Monday that the taco burger is, quote, disappearing again soon. So if you haven't had a chance to try the taco burger, if you did have a chance and enjoyed it as much as Tristan did, then you better get there
Specifically
soon.
me.
Well,
Not you.
among the people on the podcast, you were the biggest advocate of the taco burger.
You think so?
I think so.
I haven't had one in months.
I actually have had one more recently than that, so I guess maybe not. Maybe you weren't the
I haven't
biggest.
had Taco Time in a long time.
I'm missing out.
I literally do not remember the last time I had Taco Time.
All right, now should we talk? I also want to shout out we talked about last week about the Pagliacci, the new pizzas from our sponsor. I tried the burrata sopressata yesterday. Top notch.
Oh,
Just outstanding stuff.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Look, there's no Seattle Mariners type situation going on at Pagliacci where there aren't enough Italians.
I suppose that may be the case. All right, let's talk about Vegas food. You hated our first
No, I
dinner
didn't
we
hate
had
our
in
first
Vegas.
dinner. I just, it was fine. The Lotus of Siam, honestly, it was really good. The meal was really good. I think I was tired and grumpy, as you could kind of end up in Vegas.
A common occurrence. You're like very red right now. Is that still from Vegas?
No.
Or is it just because of the fact that it's 100 degrees in
I
this
think
house
it's
right now?
100 degrees.
I'm definitely sweating through this podcast.
Lotus of Siam. I think it was when you're in Vegas, you start drinking early, sometimes like 10:30 a.m. or whatever. By like 6 p.m., you either, if you're going out for the night, for a long night, you take a nap, you reset, then you get going for later. As we didn't have a chance to do that. So you kind of, you get a little bit snippy.
You were definitely sniffing,
Or
that's
whatever.
for sure.
Should I be upset for wanting to have gone to the Italian family restaurant Batista's? Should I apologize for that? Matt Festa update on the podcast. We shouldn't go to Batista's Italian family restaurant. Like, I don't think that is... Granted, they were closed. But I don't think that's something that I was out of line for saying would have been fun. The timing of it probably wouldn't have worked because they closed shockingly early. But do you not want to have old school Italian type food? It was weird. I told Jan about this and she was like, it would probably be disappointing. And I'm like, I don't... Like, we are so far removed. Look, Jan ain't cooking Italian food. You know what I mean? You and I are cooking a lot more Italian food than Jan is.
Agreed.
And no offense, she's not listening. She went to Vegas and ate at Popeyes.
Popeyes, yeah.
So this is not the person who I need to be telling me that I'm going to be disappointed by an Italian meal. It's been a long time since we've eaten our grandparents' Italian food. I think I would have been very happy with average Italian food and bottomless table wine.
Didn't necessarily say bottomless, but yes, free.
Yes,
free.
it did.
It did it?
Yes.
Okay. So the second day we were there, for lunch we went to the Aria food court. They've got now a food hall kind of competing with Vidara not far. And the place that I wanted to go there that I was very excited about was Soulbird because the chef there was one of the judges on this most recent Top Chef season.
I guess it doesn't necessarily say bottomless. It just says free.
That's...
All dinners include minestrone soup or Italian salad, garlic bread, pasta side, homemade cappuccino, free house wine included with dinner, red or white. I might have jumped to the conclusion of the word bottomless.
See, I don't think bottomless unless I specifically see the word bottomless.
Okay, that's a good rule actually.
It is a good rule, and just in life in general. And so I had their.
All dinners include free house wine with dinner, although if you would like other wine than the house wine, we have a nice selection of wine to purchase to go along with your dinner.
I don't know that necessarily changes my opinion on it. I had their flagship chicken sandwich, and it was quite outstanding.
It looked really good, actually.
Yeah. So that was great. And then for dinner, well, wait, what did you have? Was your lunch at Aria notable?
Oh, I mean, it was incredible. I had New York style deli, and I had a Reuben sandwich.
What was the name of the deli there?
I don't remember.
Dynamite podcasting.
But I don't think that we don't need to get into that. I think it's very nice. It was good food. It's not as notable as the meal we had the next night.
Well, that night, which is when we went to Best Friend Roy Choi's restaurant in the Park MGM. I've wanted to go there for a long period of time, have looked too late to be able to make reservations. This time, that's, by the way, the Proper Eats food hall at the Aria. And you went to the Wexler's Deli, it appears, is where you got that.
It was freaking great.
Yeah. This time, made the reservation well in advance, was able to get one for all five of us. You, me, Mrs. Fantasy Genius, the famous cousin Katie, and her husband Ben.
Oh, the famous cousin Katie regaled us with amazing conversation. She was engaging.
She was the MVP of
the
the table,
MVP
for
of
sure.
dinner. Anywhere the famous cousin Katie goes.
So we got more or less their chef's menu, but basically turned it over to our waiter to kind of bring us what he thought would make sense.
Oh, and shouts to the waiter also.
Yeah.
I mean, he held it down.
Yes.
As far as just like making sure it was an incredible meal for the exact same price. I think even slightly less with a bunch of add-ons than the chef's menu. Like it was an incredible experience. But you said this is Roy Choi's only brick and mortar restaurant?
Don't quote me on that. I don't know that I've fact-checked that one. I said a lot of things when we were running around in lifts in Vegas that turned out not to be accurate when I fact-checked them later. And I was like, what were the drivers thinking when I said this thing about who owns the Cosmopolitan that is wildly incorrect?
When the Formula One race is happening?
No, I did look that one up. I was correct on that one.
I think it was not the best meal that I've ever had in Vegas. I still think Momofuku is probably, as far as signature dishes and special dishes, I think Momofuku has the crown over Roy Choi's Best Friend. The Best Friend also is significantly cheaper than Momofuku. Like when you're talking about those signature items from Momofuku, they are absurdly expensive, but they are pretty special.
Yes.
And I will admit that they stand out just a tiny bit more than Best Friend, but the items from Best Friend that they do in an almost perfect way. I thought the squash was the best squash that I've basically ever had in my entire life.
It was so good. I have never had any feelings, positive or negative, about squash. And this made me feel like I want to learn how to cook squash this way.
You got mad at me, so it's pretty funny. I thought the waiter said corn or squash, which you pick, and I confidently said squash.
Aggressively said squash.
I thought we were gonna all be like giving me a 3-hour ceremony for an agreement with how good squash is.
3-hour ceremony.
I got back and I was telling Jan about it. Jan was like, "Squash? How could that be good?" I'm like, first off, okay, whatever it is, it's better than Popeyes. But no offense, Popeyes, incredible. But
just we have plenty of Popeyes in Seattle. You don't need to go to Vegas to get it.
I have loved squash forever. I thought we were all on the same page about the deliciousness of squash. But so I confidently said that. You all disagreed with me. Made them have corn as well. I did not eat a bite of corn. I would not ever.
It was mostly Katie and I. I got to say the corn was totally solid, but compared to everything else on the table, I was not using my precious stomach space on that corn.
That's a miso squash, right?
Correct.
So it's marinated in miso for like 24 hours.
With a miso glaze as well.
Whew, that was incredible. There was, what do they call the platter of different meats?
I think it's just the barbecue plate, basically.
Just a barbecue plate,
barbecue
right?
platter, yeah.
So there's garlic chicken on it, a spicy pork on it,
Yep.
and some type of steak on it.
Galbi bone-in short rib.
Oh, that bone-in short rib. And to me, the flanken style short rib is like my favorite food in the entire world. It's so thin, but that means that the flavor is they do this at Costco quite a bit, the flanken style short ribs, and they have them at Fred Meyer sometimes. It is, if you ever see it, just get it. Don't even question it. I'm not even joking. I will make it in like soy sauce or something like that, like a teriyaki sauce, and then put a bunch of a fruit like an orange or a pineapple or a mango or whatever. It is always the best food that I can ever eat. So seeing that, I thought was pretty incredible on there. The whole plate was just fucking inject it straight into my veins.
Don't, because then I couldn't taste it. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, so I think that and the squash were by far the two highlights for me. And then also the tacos, obviously.
Oh, my God.
The Galbi Street tacos that are direct from Kogi, Roy Choi's food trucks.
The tacos were incredible. The dessert was incredible. There's a strawberry cheesecake that was kind of unlike anything I've ever seen before. It almost, this is not an offensive way to say it, kind of reminded me of a Dairy Queen dessert. Because there was like the really bright red crust on the outside of the strawberry cheesecake.
Yeah.
And then the cheesecake and then a little bit of strawberry on the inside. That was
there was layers to it.
exceptional. And also the
Date cake.
Oh, the date cake as well. But I'm saying the salted buns, complimentary buns, just
Hawaiian buns.
perfectly done. I mean, literally anytime somebody says Hawaiian buns, the answer is yes.
But also if they're buttering and salting it too.
Salted butter buns. Like, come on. So the waiter advised that we take the pork from the tray, from the barbecue plate, and put them on the buns and make little pork sandwiches.
You didn't have to be advised of that.
It was nice to know to wait, though, because you
Yeah.
get those buns and you want to eat them all right away.
Which we both did. We both did immediately eat one, but I guess we had enough that we were able to eat two each.
I think this was probably the second best ever meal that I've ever had in Vegas, because it had the combination of incredible food. It was a unique experience.
Exactly.
I think Best Friend in general as a restaurant it's a different style of restaurant. It's extraordinarily loud. There's the little like bodega place on the outside and the restaurant on the inside. It doesn't feel, I'm going to say this right now, it doesn't feel exceptionally contrived. You have to understand that you're in like the home of capitalism inside of Vegas. So everything is going to be at least a little bit contrived, but you're kind of like it's like listening to a really like good pop album and you're like, I get it. This is an expensive pop album. You know what I mean? But it's also really fucking good.
Yeah. Like, look, Olivia Rodrigo is like highly produced.
Oh yeah.
But still enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But you're like, good for you. I mean, come on.
Do you have any takes on Secret Pizza the next day?
I thought it was great. I love Secret Pizza.
It was very solid.
I
It's
was
a spot.
worried we weren't going to get to Secret Pizza while we were there, and that it's like a must go to at some point in Vegas, in my opinion.
It's the first time I've been there in years.
Really?
Oh yeah, it is not a must go to for me.
That's kind of
And
wild.
the first time I haven't
the
gone
NBA
to
people
the-
don't like to go there.
Well, see, the thing is, normally when people are going to Secret Pizza, it's like they're going at like 1 a.m. and it's your second dinner. But when you eat your first dinner at 10 p.m.,
They're
like
open
we
till
always
4.
do, there's not as much room for second dinner.
Are you going down there for Summer League?
Don't know yet.
We'll see. Okay. Is Wemby going to be there?
We'll see. Full on, we'll see.
On all things? Okay. Who knows who will draft him?
Exactly. Complete mystery. Tune in June 22nd to the ESPN live stream to find out.
But, the live stream only, huh? Not the broadcast?
More details on that to come.
Hello.
But you know this, right?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I'm aware of these details. But I do think, could you win points with the ESPN writers by showing them Secret Pizza? Is there a chance they don't know?
I don't think so.
Okay.
First off, it's not necessarily ESPN writers,
Or
but
NBA basketball writers.
I mean,
There's no way that
secret,
everybody knows.
that secret is pretty well out by this point, except for the one guy who did ask us where we got the pizza.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing when you're up there if you haven't been there before. It's not that
I
obvious.
had kind of forgotten where it was until I had walked through the third floor the day before.
And it's
trying
a
to get to
floor
the pool.
above the Block 16.
Yes. So,
Okay.
all right. Do you still want to do this Blazers vibe check?
Eh.
All right, we'll do that next week.
Yeah, let's
previewing
do
the
a
draft.
Blazers 5 check next week.
Okay. I assume there are no hot takes this week. Oh, it's time for. It's definitely not like you're going to be like, wow, how early we got to this. It's time for your favorite segment.
Don't burn yourself. We got Mariners hot takes coming at ya.
Did I forget to write Mariners hot takes this week? No. The Mariners forgot to show up this weekend, both in San Diego, game 2, which we bet on, and 2 out of 3 games against the Angels. So guess what? You think you're going to see them in the rundown, but they're not over 500. So we'll see you next week, Mariners. Maybe.
Wow. Well, I do have notes on them as they are back home after.
You have to say the notes just because you wrote them down?
I do. 2-6 road trip.
I'm gonna do this rundown style.
You're just going to nod. Okay. On the plus side, Brian Wu did make a stronger start in the Mariners' lone win over the Angels
Wow.
last weekend, going 4 2/3 innings. Did not get credit for
Hello.
the win because of that. Then Sunday saw Logan Gilbert get rocked for 8 hits and 7 runs in just 3+ innings. Mariners did bounce back Monday night, a strong start to their homestand, taking on the Miami Marlins with what was the final in that one? Was it 9-1?
8-1.
8-1. 3 home runs in that one. Big night for Ty France. So I did not realize that all of Ty France's home runs have come out of home. All 6 of them.
Really?
Yeah. And another strong start for Bryce Miller in that one. 6
His
innings.
ERA is
1
over
run.
4. I was kind of shocked by that.
The one bad start in Texas, right?
I think he had a couple. Atlanta wasn't great.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate that I'm engaging with this. I said they were off the rundown. It went to show, looking at his ERA, that having and look, to the extent that ERA matters, but kind of maybe starts mattering with Logan Gilbert. I don't really give a fuck about the advanced stats because he's kind of sucked. But
we know you don't think the Mariners pitching staff has been very good. You didn't think the Mariners pitching staff had been very good when they had been the best.
when they were good, now that they're bad, they're still not good. Being consistently really, really great is how you have, like, it showed me that it's not that easy to have a very, very low ERA.
It is not. No, if it was, more people would do it. As we mentioned in the rundown section, Penn Murphy returned to the injured list after leaving his first appearance back with the team on Sunday. He was replaced by Ty Adcock, who had been at AA Arkansas, made his major league debut on Monday night in the win over the Marlins, pitched a pair of scoreless innings.
I'm going to give the hot take later that the Mariners are just ignoring Tacoma.
It is very fascinating. They constantly call. I mean, they've called up a lot of relievers already from Tacoma, so I assume that is why they went to AA Arkansas.
They are just,
Ty Adcock.
Double A is the new Triple A. The amount of players who've been called up from Double A straight to the majors is kind of wild.
Yes. So you know who else forgot to participate recently? Mariners fans in All-Star voting. It is not looking like 2001 when they had, 7 of the 9 starters?
Wow, is that the only way that this season doesn't look like 2001 All-Star voting?
Can't think of any other way. No Mariners are higher than 5th in their position in the first round of All-Star returns. Julio Rodriguez is 9th among outfielders. And I know he's not having a great season, but come on. It's a fucking All-Star game, and Julio Rodriguez is extraordinarily fun to watch. Like, really?
They better.
You're more excited
All-Star game.
to see George Springer in the All-Star game than
Okay,
Julio?
the people of Toronto are very good at voting on this.
Well, I will.
Look-
Maybe the people of Seattle. Weirdly, you know who's doing amazing in All-Star voting?
Who?
Jose Caballero is 6th among second
I mean,
basemen.
come
I don't
on.
get it.
Don't you want Caballero on the All-Star
I
game?
don't not want Jose Caballero in the All-Star game.
Maybe there's no Blue Jay to vote for. Look, way down there south of Toronto, there's not that much happening in the Deep South. They don't have a lot of other things to do other than voting in the All-Star game. Also, if you know when the Mariners play the Blue Jays, it's an entire fucking country
I'm
people
aware.
who are voting for this.
Well, it's not George Springer's not like the only player. He was just the one I remembered off the top of my
No,
head.
they have like leading vote getters in multiple. It's like Bo Bichette's an All-Star right now. Like they had the leading vote getter in a lot of categories. You know that the MLB goes in and tampers with it, though, right?
Do they?
Yeah, they reduce the Canadian votes. Come on.
In
In the same way that the Canadian dollar's review.
Yeah, they apply an exchange rate.
Yeah, they apply an exchange rate. I don't know who let them vote on our All-Star game. This is strictly for people of the North.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, moving on
Do you
to
know this is the northernmost possible All-Star game?
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Wow, think about that.
I did not think about that.
Yeah. The sun is going to set at like 11:15.
I don't think that's accurate.
You ever seen Seattle in July?
It kind of sounded like the pilot in Airplane. You ever seen this Seattle in July?
Bobby? His name's Bobby, right?
That sounds right. If it isn't, it's close enough. All right, let's talk about the Sounders, who had a wild 3-3 draw Saturday in Queen City, which saw Charlotte FC answer all 3 Sounders goals with one of their own. The first of those came from Christian Roldan, making his first start since dealing with a concussion. The other 2 came from Raul Ruiz, matching his previous MLS output this season, so that was exciting to see. Yet the Sounders couldn't make any of them stand up, surrendering the final equalizer in the 89th minute. Sounders were outshot, but had more. Joey had more shots on goal. In fact, Stephen Fry did not record a single save in this game, in which Charlotte FC scored 3 times. Sounders still second in the West, but maybe not by the time they play next. Their opponents will make up some of the matches in hand.
They lost to like a USL team? Drew with a USL team? Oh, this team's in MLS now?
They are,
The
yes.
Charlotte FC?
Yeah.
Wow. The Queen City?
Yeah.
Huh.
Those teams will make up some of their matches in hand with the Sounders off this weekend before playing midweek next week. At home, OL Reign did better. Despite seeing midfielder/MC Megan Rapinoe leave in the 7th minute with an apparent calf injury, still beat Kansas City 2-1 in a rematch of last year's NWSL semifinals loss. Sofia Huerta, stepping in for Megan Rapinoe in this role, converted a penalty for a handball in the 36th minute, later set up Jordan Heidema with a cross to make it 2-0 in the 68th. Same scoreline through stoppage time when Isabel Rodriguez started home a goal for the current to add a little tension to the closing minutes, but the Reign still saw out the victory. They remain tied for 3rd, a point off the pace in the NWSL standings as they head on the road Saturday in Houston. Dash have been the league's most average team. They are 7th in the standings with an even goal differential. Completely even, Steven.
Jerry.
Yeah. I don't know whether this, who was up in that one? Was George doing well and Elaine was doing poorly?
I think that's right.
Okay, so the Reign are George in this particular tortured metaphor.
This was when they were doing the opposite, right?
No, I don't think it was that. What, or was it? Oh, maybe it was.
When George was doing the opposite of
yeah.
every instinct he had.
He tells the woman that he lives at home with his parents.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right, Seattle Storm.
That was Krista Taylor. Is that her name?
You talking about the Ben Stiller's wife?
No. She did it, Jerry.
Hmm.
This is from that 70s show. Or not that, from the Drew Carey show and from Scrubs.
Oh, Krista Miller.
Krista Miller.
Yes.
That's her name. Yes.
All right.
Good stuff. Good podcast.
Dynamite podcast, dude.
I've been listening to
This is why we've been going for almost 10 years. Some content like this.
That was what's her name? From who cares?
We'll see.
I've been listening to I've been doing a Seinfeld rewatch while sleeping.
As one does.
I was gonna say as one does. I'm on the Cheever letters. It is really season 4 is just like you want to always deny it, but it's kind of like
That's where they're finding their fastball.
But it's not even that they were finding their fastball. It's maybe the greatest season of TV of all time. Like I will put it up against anything as a sitcom, like fucking 22 episodes.
Yeah.
Sitcom. It is wild how good and consistent it is. Anyway, I just came to the conclusion that Seinfeld's good.
Wow.
So, but I've been listening to this podcast. I would just literally search Seinfeld on Spotify for podcasts because I was like, I can't listen to anything about sports right now. All sports are bad. Somehow a team called the Nuggets won the championship, and
you can only record podcasts about sports. Although, to be fair, this podcast has barely been about sports.
If there was a podcast about Roy Choi's best friend Menu, I would have pulled that up too. But
well, we should have him on to discuss Roy
does he
Choi's.
fuck with that?
Yeah.
Okay. What does he famously?
Well,
Is he on fucking Scott Van Pelt's show talking about Roy Choi?
He was one of the people I DM'd with about it. Yeah.
Well, you don't show me your DMs anymore.
I'm very certain I told you that.
I didn't know. Well,
Okay.
shouts to Parmo.
Yeah.
He's a good rec. Anyway,
We have literally had him on for a Vegas food podcast.
I've
You
been
weren't there. We cut you out.
listening to this podcast called Signcast with these two dudes, just like very in-depthly talking about every single episode and every single scene in each episode.
How long are the podcasts about each episode?
They're like an hour and 20 minutes or so.
About a 22-minute network sitcom.
Yes.
Nice.
They are very in-depth. I wouldn't say that they're informative per se. Sometimes
What?
you'll get they talk about who all they guess. I don't even know if this is a popular podcast. I literally just found it. That's all I'm saying. And so on one episode that I was listening to, it was recorded in 2015 and they did every episode and they were done. And they were like, that Lyft is getting pretty popular lately. And neither of them really had a confident perspective about Lyft. And I really realized that 2015 was 100 years ago.
So long ago.
They were talking about riding around in taxis in New York City. And to circle it back around Seinfeld season 4 style, you had the ultimate sneak in Las Vegas, which in the year 2023 of our Lord is taking a taxi instead of taking Lyft.
So much faster from the airport. Cannot recommend it highly.
If I could give one recommendation from going to Vegas, it is not any of the restaurants or anything else. It is not waiting for Lyft and instead taking a taxi from the airport.
Yeah.
So
There you go. Buried 58 minutes into this podcast. your Vegas advice.
I was just so impressed with the idea, and there were hundreds of taxis there waiting to take us
so
around.
many. Just happy to do it.
How'd the Storm do?
Well, they dropped both ends of a home set to the Washington Mystics over the weekend.
Probably pretty exhausted after that ceremony.
No, that was post game.
Oh, the ceremony was you had to
Wait, you
sit
didn't
through a
realize that?
Storm basketball game and then have 3 hours. They should have just canceled the game.
You know that the ceremony was much longer than the game itself, right? The original plan was to have players do the post-game press conference afterwards, and mercifully they called that off. And Noah Quinn did speak after they did talk to reporters after the game, but it was mostly just about Sam. So on Friday night they played
Not much for the
without.
basketball to talk about.
On Friday night, they played without Jewel Lloyd due to a foot injury. Noel Quinn described it as something that Lloyd has been dealing with on an ongoing basis, but Lloyd later dismissed any concern about it. Played really well without Lloyd and were in the game behind 24 points and 3 blocks from Ezi Megbagor, but still lost by 7 in that one. Lloyd returned on Sunday, was joined in the starting lineup by rookie Jordan Horston, who replaced Mercedes Russell. Playing without Elena Deladon due to neck soreness, the Mystics still started off hot from downtown while the Storm struggled to score, allowing Washington to build a 27-point lead. At one point in this one, the lead was still 21 going to the fourth quarter, but the crowd of 13,000 plus that turned out for the Sue Bird ceremony came into play, fueling a 17-0 Storm run to start the fourth. They were within 3 with 2:48 left, but did not score the rest of the way.
Did the crowd leave?
Another close loss.
The 13,000 strong? Did they all leave?
No, they stayed around for the ceremony.
I guess it doesn't matter then.
Huh?
You're just like giving the crowd credit for the 17-0 run, but then they don't finish off the run.
Well,
the crowd had no factor in it.
I'm just saying, like, they were very loud starting the fourth quarter, despite the fact that the team was down 21. Like, I give them a lot of credit for that.
Okay, fair enough.
We saw a second lineup change.
They should have been cheering against that 17-0 run. They should have been out there
for the ping pong balls.
For what?
For the ping pong balls.
Oh yeah. You think this team is going to be doing anything?
Look, close losses are not a bad outcome for the Storm right now. We saw a second lineup change to start the second half on Sunday with Ivana Dojkic replacing Yvonne Turner at point guard. Turner did not play in the second half, suggesting Dojkic will likely get the start on Tuesday in Phoenix. If that does happen, that would give the Storm a pair of rookies in the starting five, with Horston also starting. That's the opener of a 3-game road trip that also takes the Storm to Las Vegas. Probably they should not check out Roy Choi's best friend.
No, they should. It doesn't matter. Just have fun. You're not going to win a basketball game.
And then also to Dallas on Saturday before coming home next week.
Hopefully they're listening and realize they should take taxis.
They have a bus. They're okay. They'll be stuck in the traffic.
Oh, that's true.
They do not need to arrange their own private transportation from the airport.
Okay, let's say that the Storm don't win a game for the rest of the year.
That's not going to happen.
Let's say the Storm win a couple of games. I mean, they're the worst team in the WNBA at this point, right?
Probably.
Where do they finish in the 2-year lottery? Look, this is fun. We're not talking the Storm. We're talking about Caitlin Clark right now.
Right.
The Storm are irrelevant.
So it kind of
This
depends.
current
Like
Storm team.
The best thing that can happen for them is Indiana making the playoffs,
Okay.
because Indiana just had such a terrible record last season that they are very unlikely to be passed if they don't make the playoffs. Indiana currently 2-6, a half game out of the 8th playoff seed.
Okay.
There's a pretty big gap.
A half game out of the 8th playoffs.
There's 7
At 2-6. This is like the Mariners should join this league. They're like, we could be how bad and make the playoffs?
I mean, there's a lot of wild cards in the WNBA.
They're 2-6 and a half game.
Well, there are 7 teams 500 or better in the WNBA right now.
Scott Service is desperate for a situation like that. That is Jerry DiPoto's dream. It's John what's his name's dream.
Oh,
To be the
John
worst
Stanton's
team. Yeah, John Stanton's dream. So I could be the worst team in the league and still maybe make the playoffs.
So
We'll never sign a free agent again. Wait, what is the dude's name?
AJ Pollock,
No, the dude who's the highest paid player.
Shohei. I don't.
No, the highest paid free agent of the Mariners of Jerry DiPoto's tenure.
Oh, Robbie Ray.
No, well the second most. It was some like role player. We talked about this like a few weeks ago.
You're talking about the Japanese player that I can never remember who
Yeah,
it was.
him.
Yeah.
Archimedes Pozo.
I mean, I remember Archimedes Pozo.
He's like, this is a great way to construct a team. I can either the first pick of the draft or make the playoffs.
Oh boy. Yeah.
You know who it was? The guy.
Nori Aoki.
Oh yeah, Norachiko Aoki.
No, Steve Aoki has pizza in the order of food card. Nori Aoki does not, sadly.
It's just called Pizza Aoki. We don't know which Aoki it is. It could be. He could have taken some of that Mariners money that he got and invested into a pizza place.
So, anyways, there's 7 teams 500. Nobody else is better than 2-5 in the league. So the Storm actually is only a game out of the playoffs themselves right now. Out 1-6.
Oh Lord.
So I know it's a little too early to be checking the 2-year standings.
It's kind of a dope league you got there, though. where a couple of the teams, they actually have kind of been beaten occasionally.
Oh, the Liberty have not been. I mean, they're 6-2, but they've been a lot of close wins. Vegas is running away. The only loss they suffered on Thursday night while we were there, while I was watching in the sportsbook. The Aces lose. Highly
noted that when we had bet on
the Golden
Knights,
they lost.
That they lost, and then the next game they won comfortably.
That is accurate.
So.
But Connecticut has put themselves very much in the mix with the super teams at 8-2. Not as good a point differential as the Liberty. But
who's on the Connecticut? On the Sun?
Brianna Jones and Alyssa Thomas are still holdovers from the team that made the WNBA Finals last year. Dewana Bonner, who scored 41 points, a career high.
Did they?
Yeah.
They played against the Aces?
Yeah.
Just got rocked.
They lost 3-1.
Okay.
Same as the Storm. It was the all-casino final last year.
But the Storm had like a really good 3-1.
I mean, they did lose game 3 after Sue Bird made the go-ahead 3 with under 5 seconds remaining.
Did she talk about that?
She did not.
I would have done 45 minutes on that.
Oh, no.
God.
Oh, no.
That's such a horrible loss.
So the Seahawks wrapped up mandatory OTAs last week. Not a lot of super newsy developments, I would say, from OTAs. The most discussed thing was that number 5 pick Devin Witherspoon spent some time playing in the slot, in the idea presumably being that if he would start on the outside and then when the Seahawks go to nickel, would move into the slot potentially so that they could use either Michael Jackson or Trey Brown in that outside corner role where both of those guys have had success as starters the last couple of years. And then also partially because of the fact that
it's fucking June. No one cares.
Well, you're trying stuff
Just
out.
Get a life by talking. I definitely had a tingling earlier when I saw the Seahawks press photos for the next year, and I was like, "Oh, football's kind of coming."
I mean, like, cause they were like, training camp starts at late July. I was like, that's so long from now. And then I looked it up, and then I thought
it's
about it.
Still a while.
It's
a while.
It's a month and a half. It's not that long.
There's time.
It's not that long. Kobe Bryant also missed time during the OTAs due to injury. He should be fine for training camp, so that was probably also a factor. It did mean that Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba worked against each other a fair bit during OTAs. According to Mike Sean, Jackson Smith and Jigba got the better of those matches.
I mean,
generally. He is playing where he's comfortable, yes.
But literally, I think from anything we've heard about OTAs, he has not been covered one time. Like, if Jackson Smith and Jigba is healthy, he is going to gain so many yards.
I mean, the only reason preventing him from gaining so many yards is that Tyler Lockett is also always open, and DK Metcalf is very good at contested catches.
I think this team is going to be...
I guess what I just said is his weakness is exposure.
I think this team is going to be, if everybody is healthy, really good on offense.
I hope so.
Like, I think the Seahawks might have a top 5 offense next year.
It's in the realm of possibility. I mean, I think it probably comes down to, what kind of interior offensive line play they get.
I really think open wide receivers are maybe more important than interior offensive line play. And if there's anything that Geno can do is hit wide open wide receivers. I don't know. Look, it's June. I'm not gonna not be excited about Jackson Smith and Jigba until there's a reason not to.
Oh, I agreed with that. Again, I'm not saying that there's any lack of excitement about Jackson Smith and Jigba on my part. I'm just saying his stats might be limited by the fact that he's playing with a team that already has one of the NFL's best receiver duos.
I mean, but just the three of them,
yeah.
and I, like the running back core. This is going to be really fucking good offense. But it's June, and every team's going to have a really fucking good offense.
Exactly.
And we shouldn't talk about football yet.
Well, we should talk a little about football, but this is probably the appropriate amount to talk about football. A little less than we talked about Roy Choi's best friend.
I mean,
but maybe slightly more than we talked about taxis in Las Vegas. Unclear. Which we talked about more.
Honestly, that was a lot better sneak. They have a lot of games on holidays this year. Like, the Seahawks were like ranking their games on holiday, or they announced the theme games, and I was like, "What do you think the theme is going to be for December 31st? What do you think the theme is going to be for the fourth Thursday in November?" Like, all of the themes are just the holiday that they're playing on.
Yeah,
It's going to be a weird season, and this offense is going to be good.
On that note,
Thanks for listening.
thanks.